So I recently just watched Avatar 1 and 2 for the very first time. Believe it or not, I've never actually seen the original Avatar movie. And watching these two movies back to back really gives me a more holistic picture of the whole series so far and thoughts for the future. So starting off with Avatar 1, so many people are talking about this movie, or were talking about this movie in the past, because of what it did for sci-fi movies, fantasy movies, and what it did for movies in general in terms of enhancing CGI and this sort of the motion capture abilities that companies and production studios were capable of doing in 2009. Like, that's just an absurd amount of talent behind and in front of the camera to bring a vision like that to life. James Cameron really had a perfect vision of what he wanted to do, and he was able to utilize the technology efficiently to create that vision. However, taking the technical elements of this movie aside, which is what anyone will tell you about Avatar movies, is that they look fantastic, they look great, they're technically masterpieces. The story, however, falls a little flat in my personal opinion. First off, one thing I didn't like about the first Avatar movie is how much time you spend not in Pandora. For a nearly 3-hour movie, a 2-hour 45-minute movie, you're spending like at least an hour 15 with just human characters. And it's not that their characters aren't interesting, it's just that, you know, the scenes in Pandora are so much more engaging and exciting and interesting and unique. That's what you want to see more of. So I understand why they have to flesh out, you know, the characters of Sully and all the scientists and whatever. I just personally would have adored more Pandora scenes. You know, in the first movie, you have them sort of flipping back and forth between waking up in their pods and then going back into the Pandora world. I mean, this idea is fine, and it helps flesh out the story of how they're able to go to this world. And obviously, they need the scientist characters to be explaining things and have the human conflict there. But I just was really more engaged in the Pandora scene, seeing this epic world that was being created in Pandora. And the thing is, like, I just didn't like a lot of the characters. I mean, a lot of the human characters were sort of one note, flat, just kind of basic, annoying corporate baddies, like the dude who's trying to, you know, deforest the place, and then you got the corporal guy. It's sort of just like one note stereotypical characters you'd expect to see, you know, in a movie like this. And only really through the characters of Jake Sully you really get the more emotional, impactful moments. And even then, I think his character is, like, you know, he doesn't go through much of a change, because it's not like he was a bad guy in the beginning and then he turned and started helping these people. He was kind of just in for the ride, doing this for his brother, and then, you know, exploring the world and realize, hey, these people aren't so bad, maybe we should fight back. But it's not that complete 180 of a tonal change for his character anyway, in my opinion. So yeah, one complaint I had, just spending too much time with those human characters. I will say though, the main conflict of the first Avatar movie is a solid, you know, conflict to have in a movie like this. They're trying to invade the space. They send him in to learn their ways to get them to leave, but obviously that doesn't end up working out, and then a whole battle takes place. But I think the main conflict in the first Avatar movie, it makes sense. Like, they're trying to protect their homeland, and then, you know, the people want to mine their gems or whatever to make their money through excavating their land and their trees and their home. And I think that makes for a great plot and a great reason to have this main conflict going. So while I do think a lot of the characters fell a little flat in the first movie and we spent too much time with the human characters, I do think that the conflict makes up for it, because it does make for, you know, a more impactful and significant threat to the people that live in Pandora. And I think it also makes more sense when the scientist people start to realize what they're doing is wrong, and then that's when the human conflict gets into play. So overall, I think the first movie definitely had a better conflict and better stakes than the second. I will say though, if you're not watching this on an IMAX screen or in a movie theater, you will notice it's dated a bit, even though it does look incredible in many moments. In others, you can clearly tell, like, obviously you know you're watching CGI and motion capture, but some moments just don't age perfectly. I'm not saying it looks bad by any means, but you can just sort of tell it's a bit old, it's a bit dated. Technology's come so much further, especially when you look at The Way of Water and see how beautiful that movie is. You can sort of just see the age of this movie, even though it's not that old still. I'm just saying technology's come such a far way that you can look at the first Avatar movie and even notice minor flaws in the animation at some parts. Not that it breaks the immersion or anything like that. It's just something worth pointing out because having not seen this movie at all, I already knew beforehand that it was meant to be this sort of visual masterpiece, and I still feel like I got the visual experience that a lot of people were talking about, but I definitely think Way of the Water obviously blew it out of the water. The first Avatar movie to me is so incredibly confusing because like at its core it's a super basic story that I feel like has been done many times before. I don't know if it's been done better visually, but I'm sure out there, if I really thought hard enough, there's other stories like with this similar plot line. People trying to invade something, and then there's a fight back for it. I don't know, but it's such an incredibly simple, almost too simple plot for such a complex world that they've built up. All these names for people and characters and spirits and just all these weird things they've made up, wrapped up in such a simple story, which I guess could be a positive because you don't want to have too much of a complicated story when you're just so blown away by the visuals, but you want a little bit more, in my opinion. So for a film that does visuals completely in a masterful way, it falls flat a little bit for me on the story elements, which is why it's so bizarre to me how this is the highest grossing movie of all time. There are much better movies than this movie. Like if you just watch Avatar, the first one, maybe on a big TV at home or on a computer, maybe not on your phone because like that's kind of dumb, but like just watch it in a way that isn't in a theater, and you will start to, I feel like that immersive experience of a theater can really just make you blindsided to, oh well, I don't really care, I'll just enjoy the visuals. But when it's sort of scaled down to maybe like a home TV or a laptop or even a desktop computer, that's when you start to notice more of the flaws of like, okay, it's kind of like low stakes story. That's when you start to notice more of the flaws, sort of like, okay, these characters are kind of boring, can we get back to Pandora please? I don't care about any of this science gibberish, like let's just get back to Pandora. So it's things like that just made me confused how this is the highest grossing movie of all time. Will probably end up being surpassed by Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, Avatar: Way of Water, when you watch first and second Avatar back to back, they're such similar movies in the feel of them. Like if you had watched Avatar like 13 years ago and then just seen this movie now, you might have not thought like, oh, that was so much different. It's really similar tonally, it's really similar in the pacing, it's really similar in just the vibe of the movie. There's lots of scenes of just going to some place, exploring, meeting people, talking with people. It's almost like you're in it for the vibe. I say things like, I say this like, you're in it for the vibes because the main conflict of this movie, thinking back, when you're watching the movie, you're thinking, wow, this is awesome, this epic battle's going down. But then when you really think about why they're fighting, it's really, really dumb. Like the entire conflict of this movie is that the corporal guy is trying to hunt down Jake Sully. That is literally, like, unless I'm missing something completely, that is literally the only conflict in this movie, is that they're trying to hunt and kill Jake Sully. So all this entire movie has been riding on is the fact that the corporal guy wants him dead, but for some reason there's wars going out, there's whole battles, villages being burned and destroyed, and whales, not whales, whatever they're fucking called, those little whale looking things being shot with trackers and all this stuff just to get one dude. Like, the grand scale of this movie, you'd think world-ending shit was going down, but no, it's just, they're just trying to get one guy. So you think about all these other soldiers and all these other people that are risking their life just to capture one dude. Like, unless I really, really missed something in the movie, I don't really understand that as a main conflict. It just doesn't work for me that well, honestly. When I was in the moment, though, like watching that last hour or so, I was thrilled. Like I was engaged, I was entertained. I was like, yes, like let's go through these emotional moments. Then as soon as it's over and you realize, wow, that was such a cool battle, why was there a battle? What were they fighting? It was just to kill one dude. Visually though, this movie blows the first movie out of the water. This movie is fucking gorgeous, like beautiful. All the underwater scenes are incredible. The new ocean water people, like they're like their island, it's so nice. Even the first few scenes in the beginning of In Pandora, with like they really transported you right back in, like, okay, like if you watch the first movie, end of that, and then right back into this, like it flows pretty smoothly, and the visuals are not too much better that if you watch them back to back it would be distracting, but it's noticeably better. It feels more alive, it feels more clear, and obviously that's what's going to happen when technology improves over the years. You get better and better looking CGI and motion capture. So I guess to wrap up my overall thoughts on these two movies, having just seen them, I really don't understand. Well, no, okay. I do understand why people love these movies, okay? I personally think they're great movies, okay? For what they are. You have to take movies for what they are. You have to take movies for what they're going for to give you as a viewer, right? You go into an Avatar movie expecting great visuals. Both these movies have that. Great music. Both these movies have fantastic soundtracks and scores, especially the second one. I love the soundtrack to part 2. You're expecting weird mystical creatures and you know, just like wild out there things. Both these movies have that. You're expecting wild fight scenes with that went the finale. I'm mumbling so much right now. Oh my god. The finale of Way of Water, the last hour or so, just the all full-on epic war battle scene, and when she comes in with her bow and arrow, and then and then he's on his bow and arrow, like the action scenes in this movie are pretty amazing, especially the ones near the end. So you're getting what you came for with both these movies, but beneath that, there's not much substance or story or really main conflict or drive that makes you care after the fact. Even if you are engaged in the moment like I was, you think about it after and you realize that's maybe not the greatest conflict or the greatest way they could have went about this story. I loved all the characters. I love them all, but you know, when the main conflict is just your dad's being hunted, so they have to make up these new conflicts, like, oh, the son's off in trouble with the new kids, and then he gets in trouble, and then 5 minutes later he's off again in trouble with the new kids, and then he gets in trouble, and then he comes back, and then 10 minutes later he's off in trouble again with the new kids because he went fishing where he wasn't supposed to, and then he beats up this other guy for making fun of his sister, and then he finally gets free, and then he runs back to save the other kid. Like, you know, it kind of gets repetitive at a point. It's like they're just making up stuff, stupid things to get more action scenes out of it. I don't know. I may have sound like I hated a lot on these two movies. I don't think they're bad movies by any means. Like, these are not bad movies. You can find much worse shit on the, you know, to watch. As far as technical and visual masterpieces go, these movies both have to be up there. And as far as movie going experiences, like, this is an experience. Like, don't get me wrong, when you watch this in a theater, it's an epic. It's 3 hours. It's long. I personally didn't feel like it was that long. Maybe the first act or the first 2 acts drag may feel slow for some people, but I definitely think the last hour, at least I felt, where the whole war is going down, I was engaged the whole time. It flew by. But I personally believe that these two movies are great, but, you know, what else are they willing to offer besides, you know, visual mastery? But maybe that says something about what you go to the movies for. Maybe not every movie, you know, I said this about Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which was a movie that got a lot of hate for having no character and the plot was dumb, but I personally love that movie just because of technical aspects, like the whole time inversion concept, the way they used it, all the practical effects. So maybe this movie is a lot like Tenet, where you should go in not expecting the greatest story or the greatest, you know, conflicts. Just enjoy the visual ride, enjoy the mastery at play by James Cameron and everyone behind the scenes. But for me personally, it's hard to ignore the poor story and character elements when so much of the story and so much of the movie is focused on these characters and their family life and you know, living up to be like their father and living up to expectations and learning and meeting new communities and all these character central moments need good characters to work, in my personal opinion. And both these movies fell a little bit flat in that regard. But as far as overall ratings go, I guess I'll just throw some ratings out there. These don't really mean anything, but I would personally probably give the first Avatar movie a 6 out of 10. The Way of Water, I would probably give... When I first got out of the movie, I was thinking an 8.5, but realizing now about, the conflicts in the characters, I would probably bump that down to maybe a 7 or a 7.5. Those might seem like harsh ratings to some people, but that's just my personal opinion. I think the second movie is better, mostly because of the visual elements. The story beats, and the story plays out in a similar way. The themes and the character work is mostly relatively similar between the two movies. But this movie's probably gonna make $5 trillion at the box office, so won't be surprised when we see Avatar 6 in 2045. If they make, well, they are apparently it's already made. Avatar 3, Avatar 4, Avatar 5. I don't know why they waited so long to get. I'm sure there's stories out there about why it took them so long, but I don't know why they waited so long to start now making the sequels. But I'll be in the theater seeing Avatar 3 and probably 4 and most likely 5. So I hope that in the coming movies, of course, the visual elements are always going to be there. That's what we've come to expect from Avatar now. Now that there's 3 more movies coming, okay, we get it. The visuals are fantastic. You've already upped yourself once, created probably one of the most beautiful, stop motion animated movies of all time. Maybe even the best use of motion capture ever put to film. So we get it. You've flexed, you've stunted enough. Now give us a great story and give us great characters. And then these movies will be elevated to another level, in my opinion, if they're able to do that with the sequels. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Avatar 1 and 2. Obviously, my thoughts really don't mean anything. It's just opinions and talking about movies, because that's why I originally started this channel. So yeah, let me know what you guys all thought of Avatar 2 and your thoughts on the first Avatar if you recently rewatched it when you went to watch part 2. So yeah, that's all from me. I'll see you all in the next one.